Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damilola Ogunshaki, and of course this morning I'll be reviewing the front pages of the dailies and also analyzing them. And of course today is World Teachers Day, so happy World Teachers Day to our teachers out there. Now let's move straight to the front pages, and of course I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with strike. ASUU aiding corruption in varsities. That's according to President Muhammadu Buhari. It says that corruption will kill education sector. Chega warns. Buhari has accepted reps' report on ASUU strike. That's according to Gbajabiamila. Federal government breaks ASUU's ranks. Register Konua and Namda. Konua expresses gratitude. Registration of new unions inconsequential. That's coming from ASUU. Says it's championing fight against corruption. You can see that story on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. And the front page, we have a photo story here with the writer that says that President Muhammadu Buhari receiving presentation from Chairman of Independent Corrupt and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Professor Bolaji, during the 4th National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector at the Presidential Villa in Abuja yesterday. On page 8, we have PDP CRISIS, BOT, Wike hopeful after 4-hour parley. New twist in housing allowance saga as IU's aides reject later. On page 13, we have collapsed Mina Highway. House of Assembly gives government 48 hours to fix road. Detention. Nnamdi Kanu petitions Buhari, seeks a political solution. Over 67% of women in Nigeria are anemic. That's coming from UNICEF. National honors authentic list will be out soon. That's from federal government. Nigeria Air, federal government raises alarm, warns Nigerians against the fake recruitment websites. Stories above on page 10. We have Sanwo-Olu approves pay rise for Lagos workers. Obi rolls out agenda, vows to retool governance, secure united Nigeria. NNPCL gross profit by 134% to 674 billion naira. And according to a quote by Afe Babalola, we have Earth is that only planet that has the right proportion of surface water, temperature, energy, atmosphere, and nutrients to effectively support. On the front page of Vanguard, we have World Bank lowers Nigeria's 2023 economic growth forecast to 3.2%. And you can see that on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. Now, away from there, we'll move straight to the Nation newspaper. And the Nation this morning is leading with PDP crisis. BOT's move to unite Atiku. Wike collapses. Wabara takes Rivers governor's position to PDP leadership. Why I wanted to leave coverage, live coverage of parley, you can see that on page 4. Access Bank acquires majority stake in Agolan Bank. AGF fraud case reassigned. We also have federal government registers ASUU. 2023 budget, federal government projects 3.7% GDP to 17% inflation. We have a World Bank predicts 1% reduction in Nigeria's growth. And lastly, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, we have a police commission's OK's dismissal of 7 officers. And you can see that on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Now, away from there, we move to The Guardian. And The Guardian this morning is leading with strike. Federal government weakens ASUU, registers rival union. Gbajabiamila presents ASUU's recommendation to Buhari. Another meeting tomorrow for final outcome. NASU, SANO members receive September salaries. Federal government silent on outstanding wages. Government may pay outstanding salaries of new unions. Konua, we are committed to advancement of varsity education. I will not dignify Konua with a response, says ASUU president. Buhari, ASUU complicit in varsities corruption. You can see that on page 6 of The Guardian. On page 6 still, we have INEC clears Delta's Oberevori, Omit Ogun PDP, Labour Party governorship candidates. We have Sanwo-Olu announcing salary increase for workers. 3 killed, 20 trucks burned as soldiers attack protesting Delta youth. You can see that on page 29. And lastly, on the front page of The Guardian, we have youth takes over Rivers community. Banija chiefs for allegedly taking bribe from Shell. And you can see that story on page 9 of The Guardian newspaper. Now, away from there, we move straight to The Punch. And The Punch this morning is leading with 10 billion naira nomination fee scandal. ASUU chairs a stormy meeting, others NWC members probe. National Deputy Chair, 5 others may face disciplinary panel over 122 million naira refund. PDP Chair should also be investigated over controversial housing allowance. NEC members. Drama as BOT, Rivers Governor meeting ends in deadlock. ASUU's aide tackles a candidate forum. Yeah, we have 3-photo story with the writer that says NDA convocation. Shibajo advocates a local manufacture of arms and ammunition. You can see that on page 20. 150 persons killed during Ikoyi prison attack. That's according to witness. We also have Kanu mustn't die in detention. Ozekome writes BUHARI. Stories above, 3 scientists win Nobel Prize for breakthrough in quantum physics. ASUU knocks Ngige over factional groups registration. And we also have Abiodun welcomes Amusa with multi-million naira property. And that's also 5 million naira. You can see that inside The Punch. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have federal government sues Meta over illegal ads, demands 30 billion naira. And that can be seen on page 21 of The Punch newspaper. And of course, that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies. Join us after the break for the analysis. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damilola Ogunshakin. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies this morning is Mr. Gbero Olajigbe. He's the Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alerts. Good morning, Mr. Gbero.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. Now let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies. Of course, President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday he accused ASUU of being complicit in corruption in the tertiary education sector in the country. And of course, some of other unions are also being accepted, like KONUA and of course SANU. They've also been registered. What do you think about this move and the president's speech?
It's really unfortunate that we are getting blackmail and gaslighting as response to the main issue of inability, of incompetence of a government to resolve industrial dispute. Let's even take it at its face value. If ASUU is complicit in corruption cases in universities, is it my own task to arrest the corrupt people? Is it not the responsibility of the president? Why is he lamenting? Why should it be now when ASUU is requesting for what is due for it, at the same time what could actually reformat the university system in Nigeria? It's really unfortunate that we have a government that is not prepared to solve any problem. A very divisive government that divide everything his hand touches. Look at children that have been at home for over 8 months, and what we are getting is that you are dividing ASUU. You want to you are bringing on board new organization or new association that is pro-government, or you think is going to be pro-government. Is that a way of solving problem? A government that cannot solve the problem of a single ASUU, how is it going to manage three associations in the same university? It's really unfortunate that we have. It's the same thing that has happened to the Nigerian society. We are excessively and almost irreversibly divided now along very dangerous fault lines of ethnicity, of religion, of even politics. It's unfortunate that our country has become a sort of joke in the context of governance, where leaders are no longer problem solving, rather generating problem to counter the problem they ought to solve in their own eyes. I think it's a wrong strategy. And this is the same president about a month ago that gave 2 weeks to a minister to end the strike. So that means that even his words are not taken serious by his ministers. So why should some of us who have been saying this all along, that we have people that are not prepared to reason and solve problems? So is this a solution to a problem now? Rather than solving problem, you continue to create a problem. The same thing I spoke when the crisis in the southeast was at the teaching stage. There are ways of solving problems, but in your own case, you choose escapist route. You escape from your responsibility. You derelated on duty, and you continue to blame those whom you have responsibility to assuage or to actually assist in reaching at a compromise that is acceptable to both parties. It's unfortunate that we have this type of situation.
All right.
But the real victim are students.
All right, he said, this strikes, especially by unions in the tertiary education, often imply that the government is grossly underfunding education. But he said that, corruption in the education system from basic level to the, tertiary level has been undermining their investment in the sector, for those who do these prolonged strikes under flimsy reasons. But from what you've seen in the budget and all that, do you think they are really funding the education sector?
What funding? What have they given education? A country that devoted almost all its earnings into buying guns, bullets, and everything under the guise of insecurity that could have even been reduced substantially by mere humanistic intervention that prioritize security governance, involving people, employing dialogue, in resolving issues. But you want to suppress all issues. And defense is taking almost all the monies in Nigeria. And you are talking of education. You can't achieve peace by responding to violence with violence. There are times you sit back and reflect, which way is the best strategy to respond to the Hydra-headed complex crisis in Nigeria. But you have chosen your own style of giving violence for violence. How has that helped us? Rather, it has escalated violent and extreme violent conflict in Nigeria. One of the ways you can solve Nigeria violence problem, albeit in long term, is by funding functional education that is productive, that is focused, that is resource that is people and students oriented, research oriented. Those are the ways you solve problem, and you get yourself off the lines of your youth out of lines of radicalization. But now you close the door of schools against them. What happens? They get radicalized and they get violent. How is that going to help society? He has chosen his path, and the path is well noted in history. He has very few months to live, but we have recorded it against him that the choice he made was to ensure that tertiary institution, particularly university education, is decimated. And that we have seen in the way this ASUU strike has been handled all along, both by him, and the Ministry of Education. Of course, in addition to that is the Ngigiangu, who is expected to foster industrial harmony, given his own job description. So they end up complicating the crisis, making every party unhappy. And even if school resumes today, what are they going to learn? Under what condition? Condition that is hostile, inhospitable, not conducive for learning and teaching? Is that how to respond to problems and challenges? And you go back and begin to blame those who are not the creator of the problems. He's a visitor to all the federal universities. He should go around and see what the university has become in terms of looking at the living environments of the students, the lecture room infrastructure that you have for humongous numbers of people in one class, in one room at the same time, taking lecture. The problem is that has created for classroom control, the problem that has created for teaching, the problem that has created for diligence, even in research and in testing the students, testing and measurement of what of those things that are learned in school. So the problem is beyond going to school, be looking at the teacher, whether you like it or not. The most important resource in education is the teacher, and they must be qualitative in content, in culture, in living, before they can deliver qualitative teaching or pass qualitative messages to the students under their care. So it's not by sitting down and wasting Nigerian monies in corruption. He's talking of corruption. Look at somebody talking corruption. Under him, his own attorney, auditor general, general. Look at what happened under him. Look at the situation under the Niger Delta NNDC. Till now, what has happened? Humongous billions of naira that have been frittered away under his nose. What has happened? He's talking of corruption. What type of corruption is he talking about? Is it definable? Can he define it? Does it lie with the purview of his duty and responsibility as a government that is committed to fighting corruption according to him?
Mr. Guerrero, we'll come back to that, of course, to talk more on education. But Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State yesterday announced salary increase for civil servants in the state. Though he did not disclose the amounts, he said the pay rise will be unprecedented on the country. What do you think about this?
I think that is the right thing to do. In his own right, in his own way, I think he has performed. When you comparatively, when you look at him, the context of construction in Lagos, the types of infrastructure that is trying to embark on in terms of light rails in Lagos, what they call blue and red rails and everything. I think he has done well, and I think it's good that human resources that are making all these things to work at least should be encouraged. And if you look at what he has done vis-a-vis the rate of inflation in Nigeria today, the rate of the intrinsic value of naira, the per capita income of Lagos workers or Lagos State, and also the disposable income of workers, we cannot fault what he has done. It forms a lie. It's a good response to a desperate economic crunch being faced by civil servants in Lagos. I hope it is worthy enough to reduce the problems of Lagos workers. When you look at the cost of transportation in Lagos today, moving from one place to the other, the inconveniences of the traffic, exhaustion, and the high increase in good of essential commodities, particularly food items, including house, rentage on houses have gone up in Lagos. So a good government should respond to all this so that you can create a better work environment for those who work for the workforce. I think he has good, and it's commendable.
All right, the NEC members said that that PDP chairman should be investigated over controversial housing allowance, and of course, last week, Arapacha and 5 others returned various amounts paid into their bank accounts to the party, questioning ASUU's authority, to approve such amounts. They said this was paid after, they queried the whereabouts of over 10 billion naira realized as nomination fees during the party's primary. They said they returned 122.4 million naira. What do you think about these issues in PDP?
Well, I think at times when you talk of PDP and corruption, it's just like talking about 5 and 6. Its addition to corruption is out of this world. I have never heard of it in Nigeria that you pay somebody for housing to go and collect 34 or 36 million and use for housing? Where? And this is a party that is making attempt to capture power, to come back to power. Who does that? Under what regulation and law? Okay, what is their salary if they are taking 36 million for housing? What is the salary? Where are they getting the money from? Are the people, is this the pattern? Has it ever been the pattern? If it has even been the pattern, is this not evidence of a tragic corruption going on in a party that has been decimated and thrown into dustbin under the accusation of corruption? Reinventing the wheel of corruption. I don't think Nigeria deserves affliction called PDP. Because if the chairman and all the gangs at the echelon will be doing this, that means that they have not changed. The party has not changed in character, in exhibition of attitude to graft, and paying attention to contests of current Nigeria that cannot accommodate this insensitivity and gross abuse of law and our constitution that is instituted to abolish corruption in all its appearances. So I think this is outright corruption, and those who return the money, whether they have ulterior motive or not, have spoken loud enough for people to know. How are you saying that if so they don't know that it's a national vice president of your party will not understand what house rent means or what? If it is so, all of them are included. Anyway, we are hearing this now because there is disagreement. If there is no disagreement, all of them will have pocketed it. And let it be known that it was revealed after they have been exposed. Those who return it, they don't do it because they are good. Because they did it because they were caught and they have been exposed. So they return the loot. That is how I see it. It should not be decorated under any guise. It should not be colored under any guise. There's no better way of calling a spade what it is. It is outright graft, corruption, and indecent practices at the highest echelon of PDP, a party that corruption kicked out of power. So, and it still continue in the same trajectory of his failure in governance.
All right, let's go back to education. Today is World Teachers' Day. What do you have to say about this, especially in Nigeria?
Well, I am a teacher, so I only congratulate all of us. Yeah. Because even though I left classroom a long time, I have taught in a lot of schools, secondary, tertiaries, and I have I commend all the teachers, and that is why teachers should be appreciated by government and by the people. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, it's tragic being a teacher in terms of your the way, the dignity, how they dignify you. Look at what is happening to ASUU. Do you think if petroleum, even tanker drivers are going on strike, federal government will have done this to them? What they are doing to us? A government that cannot pay us, it can waste money on inanities, on ceremonies, on what will not add value to society. We don't get our priority rights. Any nation that ignores the percentage, the critical mass of its teacher, is not going anywhere. It's not going to join other communities of nations in parties of development. So it's not going anywhere. That is why we must begin, whether it's as a nursery school teacher, primary school teacher, secondary school teacher, as tertiary school teachers. They must be taken serious. They must be they must earn they have earned their comfort, and they deserve to live well, and before they can teach the next generation, that will take over from the government itself. So, happy International Teachers Day, particularly to Nigerian teachers who have taught under a very hostile condition, economic condition, social rejection in most cases, in most homes, in most communities, and even by the government they claim to be serving, lack of payment or salary. You can now see that even a polytechnic in Abia has not paid teachers for 20-something months. And all the courses, accreditation to all the courses of Abia State Polytechnic has been withdrawn because of because the government failed to pay teachers' salaries. So it's as good as that. When you look at our nation, you look at face of violence when you cannot pick up the beauty of what teachers are looking like. A society with ugly teachers, underfed teachers, undermined teachers can never make progress, can never develop, can never emerge, and will never of violence. The best Nigeria has never rewarded teachers commensurately. So even when I was, it wasn't, but it wasn't this bad. It was at least relatively comfortable in terms of when you look at the economic context and social context of that time. You know that at least it was better than what we have now. So I cannot put a price to what teachers should be paid, but a teacher should be paid as good as what the governors are being paid, depending on the caliber of teachers. Elsewhere, you have teachers earning more than some president outside the country. You have teachers, some professors earning more than the governors of states and mayors of councils. So I think teachers should not be seen as the wrong of society, like we treat them in Nigeria. We should treat teachers decently, and what is conducive to their services should be given to them timely and promptly. It's a sin when you own teacher 2 months salary, not to talk of 12 months salary, and government does not. Most governments across the states don't even budge about that. They see it as normal. It's a tragedy. And I'm telling them today, those who are doing that are the one creating the crisis and conflict, violent conflict in Nigeria. They are not the young ones that are mere perpetrators. Because education will take away children, young people, out of lines of violence, out of lines of crime, out of lines of creating culture of resistance, and out of lines of radicalization to violent extremism. These are what education, functional education, can do to society. Create a society of order and a society that is stable, that is focused, that has potential for and prepare for development. So teachers' remuneration, you can't put a price tag on it, because their work extends beyond their job description. As a matter of fact, how do you measure payment of those that act as in-loco parentes, those who serve as parents when parents, biological parents, are not there? How do you measure that? They deserve all the care, all the support that they can get. But Nigeria is a monumental failure when it comes to teachers' welfare.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Aguero, for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure being with you.
And of course, we just reviewed and analyzed some of the stories on the front pages of With Us this morning. Now, to get more of our top stories, you can follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. I'm Damilola Ogunshaki. Please enjoy the rest of your days, and once again, happy World Teachers Day.